live. It's Real and Ron. I am Lynn Serrano, and you are?
I have no more fires, Brian.
How are you, Brian?
I've got a lot on my plate today.
When don't you?
Well, no, I mean I'm feeling it. So yeah, it's busy.
All right.
It's not going to get any less hectic.
I hear you. I hear you. So it's next Monday. You start your class. Hey.
Yeah, that stays away. I'm not focused on that right now.
Yeah. One thing at a time, right? One thing at a
Right.
time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what we've been doing is taking one step at a time this past week and putting out fires. This is
Hmm.
day 4. Resolution to move forward together or not. Fire is complete.
Yeah. I mean, there as we've been building up to this, it's like there has to be some resolution of some kind. And thanks to everybody tuning in, all of our loyalists, and anybody catching the replay. We're honored and grateful you're on this journey with us. Maybe you've been there all along, and maybe this is your first show. Or I highly encourage if you have some time to review the previous 3 days, so you know to build you up to speed about what we're talking about today. But this is everything that once you get the feeling that there's something not right or whatever would lead you to want to, have a conversation with somebody, this is what it's all for, is that you can move on either together or separate. And this is not exclusive to just intimate relationships, marriages, any of that. It's for anything. Right. And it could be a work relationship. It could be a friend. It could be a colleague. It could be an acquaintance, whoever it might be. Anybody that you might potentially be allocating time to and giving your time to and investing your time with, it's anything and everything.
Yeah. And I really like the fact that when you can pinpoint where you're going with this, the sooner your life can be on track. I mean, you know, avoiding the inevitable is not a good thing. And I did that a good part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't change it, but I've learned a lot from it. And so now I've shifted gears from that. So, there's components that we're just not taught, growing up is successful ways to handle a situation and move forward. And so things like this are really nice to be able to go and say, hey, I'm going to move forward from this and go on.
Yep.
So yeah. Yesterday we talked a little bit about letting the fact that exhausting all scenarios and perceptions and miscommunication to knowing that, if you've done all those steps, now you're here to, really just release, let go of the situation as a whole, and allowing whatever's going to be. So welcome everybody for being here. We appreciate you.
Mm-hmm. This is where the reality kicks in, that everything that you've been trying to do, and there's no turning back. You're either in it or you're not. And you're going to be taken at your word, is that whatever happens from, like what we talked about yesterday, is that whatever possible outcomes or resolutions, from the best, where you're able to talk in person and just have a timeless conversation, if you will, all the way to somebody possibly not even giving you the time of day. You have to be content with either of those and everything there in between. And ultimately, it's up to you to decide that, because especially if you're the person that you're going to be doing a majority of the work, because there's something incomplete in your life. You're doing it for you. You're not doing it for them. But unfortunately, in order to get it complete, you have to be with them, right? Or fortunately, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, and so that's where it gets to be mucky waters. It's not ever easy to break up a relationship, friendship, family. I think that's why people delay this whole thing of
Absolutely.
resolving the situation. And I think some people are so used to having conflict in their life that truly they enjoy the conflict if they don't want to take and deal with the elephant in the room.
Right. Well, and let's look at it from a standpoint of how many times in life are you going to deal with incomplete matters before it's just going to drive you nuts, before you can't function properly just because there's fire after fire after fire? And what's the root of it? You, right?
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
it doesn't make a difference if you're right or wrong or any of that, you're still involved in it.
Right.
And how do you know how it can affect you or not affect you if you don't do the work it takes to complete it?
Right.
Now, completing it could be as simple as having a conversation or walking away or whatever. But anytime that you regurgitate it, meaning that you bring the past back into your, in your visual, it means you're not complete with it. It's not done yet, because you still get some reward mentally, physically, spiritually, to not complete it. Right. It allows you a moment to, if it's a partner that you don't really care for, it allows you to rag on them a little bit more. Right. Well, what does that do for you? It just wastes the moment of your life.
Well,
And
and
all
people
of,
do.
and raising your health, or elevating your stress level, your mental capacity is depleted and it throws you off your game.
Yeah, and people do these things because they don't want to see their part in it.
Mhm.
And not seeing their part in is basically a huge problem.
Right. Well, if everybody lived with integrity, our world would be an entirely different place.
Yeah,
Or even let's say 10% of the population, whatever, more than what it is now. Life would look a heck of a lot different than it does.
yeah. Well, you can't have a negative without a positive. So,
Right.
I mean, the equal balance of the ecosystem and whatever you want to call it. So, you
But
know,
the problem is that all of the negatives ruin the positive.
exactly. That it's the killjoy.
Mhm.
It's definitely the killjoy.
Well,
So,
and to the point where people don't even know what the definition of integrity is, or live their life by it, or when you can tell somebody that potentially you just met, when it's like, oh, they're not going to fulfill upon that, they're just blowing smoke. The quicker that you can realize that, the more the better you're going to be for your own character and your own well-being.
hi, Larry,
Larry's here.
Mr. KC man himself.
Mm-hmm.
So seriously, you know, I wish more people would take the fact that they take the hard road to resolve something. It would alleviate so much friction in your life if you could, easier said than done.
Well, it's easier to hide than it is to expose yourself and be vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really is, but um,
But what?
but I just wish more people would do it. And I used to be one of those people that would, procrastinate on taking care of something that is mentally catastrophe to me. Like I wouldn't face those things in the past, and I
Mm-hmm.
wasted a lot of time.
Right.
So I don't have it to do over again, but I definitely learned from it.
But
And
see, the problem is that the more that people can get away with these things, the more they think it's okay, or the more
yeah,
that this is the way the world is. And it's like, okay, they're programmed a certain way. I get that, we all are, right?
yeah,
Based on our generation, based on when we were born, our upbringing, all of that. But the more that this is validated and concessions are allowed, the more people feel that that's okay. And then that's how they, dare I say, control you, manipulate you,
yeah,
whatever. They know how to push your buttons. And
right.
if they're not doing it there is no reason to push anybody's buttons that I know of that's for a good reason, unless it's
This
for a laugh, or unless it's to joke around, right?
right, or to
But
be a
it's
coach.
right.
Yeah,
But there again, and like what Jerry told me on the phone the other day, what's the difference between a coach and a consultant? A consultant does all the work. A coach, actually, you do the work, and the coach is there just to look at it, right?
yeah.
So you either, there is no alternative besides being straight up, in my opinion.
No, it just takes some of us a little while to get there. That's all.
Right. But the thing about it, the problem with that is that noise, bad people around you, and a society that has no agreement for that.
Yeah.
There's
No,
no agreement in society that if we live that way, we'd be better, because because people fall short on it all day, and then it's like, well, but then they don't want that done to them. Like
Right.
when somebody gives them their, or when they give somebody their word or vice versa to meet up for coffee. Let's think of something simple, right?
Yeah.
They'll gladly not show up to somebody else's coffee that they arranged, but then they wouldn't dare. They would be all upset and all in arms if somebody did it to them. Well,
Right. And
sorry to tell you, but you get what you put out there, you
right.
know?
Yeah. And I think that that's why our society is where it's at right now, is so many people put up with so much shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I put up with a lot of shit for a long time, stayed quiet. And then all of a sudden, these people, including myself, come out with 2 barrels out voicing their opinion now because they held it in so long. Right. And there is our coach man.
The coachman. Integrity, you either have it or you don't. And here's the thing. It is compared to the masses, living a life out of integrity is very straightforward. And it doesn't make a difference if you're a visionary, if you're a realist, it doesn't make any difference. But the closer you are to the root of what integrity is and perhaps living a life by it, there is very little margin of error.
Yeah.
Because it's very black and white. And I'm a creative, but a part of me is black and white, right? It's like, okay, does somebody want to meet? Yes or no? It's not maybe, right? Like that word doesn't exist in my world, right? Because anything I do, I commit to either being all in or not, right?
Right.
And it gets faster and quicker. The faster and quicker it gets is that it identifies what's important to you, but also though, like, you're okay with saying no, and it doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you a bad person.
Right. Well,
instead of people going along and saying, well, I really have all this other stuff to do, but I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to fight it the whole time.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's just like me, I said I was going to write a book, and I mean, it's done because I said it was going to be done. Yep. It's just because my word means more to me than not getting it done or making up the excuses. So, I mean, when that's ingrained to you, it's inevitable, what it's got to be done. And that's that, Yeah. And so I love challenging myself. I love challenging myself to be out of my comfort zone so that I can confront things, and then when I'm challenging myself and I see something difficult, especially resolution of a relationship, I'm like, you know what? I got to get this shit over and done with, peel the Band-Aid off and go on.
I think go ahead, Lynn.
I was just going to say, just going to keep bleeding. Go ahead. That's it.
I think that the more that you study this and embody integrity, your word, the less you put up with in life.
Yeah.
Like you really get granular, like a microscope with goggles.
Yeah.
like by every word somebody says, and either they fulfill upon that or not.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Do I maintain my integrity every single moment of every single day? Absolutely not. I'm a human being. But I'm aware of when I don't do it, and then I man up to it, and that's the problem. Is that when people know that they're in the wrong and they don't plan on committing to anything.
Yeah.
But they say as if they are.
Yeah.
But then when you ask them in a delicate way, it's like, oh, what happened there? And then they make you the bad person, as if you forced them to say something they weren't going to fulfill upon.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing my kids could tell you growing up, because I've had promises and promises broken to me. And so my kids would corner me, Mom, you promise? And I go, I'm not going to promise that. But then when I said I promised, I would promise to do it. Now, mind you, whatever really sucked was I was really always sick to my stomach. We didn't know that. So it took a long time to realize it. But, there's sometimes I couldn't eat or do certain things. But when I said I promised the best I could. And they'd always say, Mom, you promised. So promise, especially to yourself and stuff. That's really, really, where the integrity starts, is keeping your word.
Right.
And so.
Well, and it ups the ante. The more you become aware of people, it's like, however, now this only works for people you've never met before, so you don't have a background about how they show up, right?
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Yes. Is how people show up. Like only new people this works for, because you have no basis, right? So you're taking them at their word, and then it's like you're watching them, right? You might check out their Facebook page and see how they're doing or whatever. And it's like, okay, whatever you do behind the scenes and what you put out there is a reflection of the words that you gave somebody or not. It doesn't mean that just because I haven't talked to somebody that that they don't have to maintain integrity. Integrity is everything and anything you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. It doesn't matter. It's like, oh yeah, I really didn't want to do that. Okay. How's it working out for you? I heard that big project that you wanted to do was really important to you. Did you complete it? No. Okay. Well, when you plan on doing it? And I love seeing people that don't want to get very specific on the court. When is that project going to be done?
Yeah.
What? You know, here's the thing. It's not meant that as if the date is definitive. It's meant to get your ass going.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I already know that after I write this book, I'm going to write a book about writing a book at the last minute and the things that went about and how I could sit there and talk myself to like, but Lynn, you said that off the cuff. Lynn, you didn't think about that, blah, blah, blah. But that's what I'm excited about. After this weekend, I write the stuff and I'm doing the process. I'll have something else to write about. The fact that half the books out there, they're just all about excuses of this and that and this and that, or copycats or whatever. But, the point is people go out and they get this stuff done. There's so many ways, like they said, to skin a cat, but it's just a matter of getting it done.
From my experience of people that live with the utmost integrity, they don't really say a lot because they're too busy being in action. Yeah. They're too busy doing what they need to do to fulfill upon what they say they're going to do.
Right.
I love people that talk big because my mouth might get me in trouble at times, but I call them out on the court, and I'm like, number one, when are you going to fulfill upon that and how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when do you think you might have an idea? Well, give me a time today. When should I read that kind of accountability? To me, it's normal for how I've been trained, but to other people, it's like I'm in, it's like, you're not going to let this go, are you? And it's like, well, wait a minute. You're telling me something you're going to do.
Yeah.
Or are you just blowing smoke?
Yeah. Well, it becomes a conversation piece to people, but they don't realize how idiotic they sound because it's the same recording over and over.
Right.
With no accolades or nothing to show for what they've said.
And then that's the perfect example for people to blame external sources about why things are not happening.
Yeah.
Like what we're dealing with right now, and we're not going to get into whatever's going on in the world today, but I saw it happen before it was going to happen. Is like what's holding people back in the world. It's very easy when it was something that all of us were affected by, right? And this is it was a different circumstance going back to the economy crashing back in 2008, right? But there was 2 or 3 years of people still blaming the situation at hand on why they were still where they were. It blows my doors off, right? But it's so much. Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Charles, is that there's going to be things are not going to align after a while.
No, I mean,
if somebody's blowing smoke for a certain period of time and they don't fulfill upon what's important to them, they're probably gonna nag, or they're probably gonna want to rant quite a bit because they're not getting done with what they said they were going to do, right?
Yeah.
And so more external backlash is coming out than actually personal accountability.
Yeah.
And I love, like, anybody that blows smoke. One thing that'll always, and then this isn't meant to quiet anybody or silence them. It's just meant to challenge them that, are you really committed to the words that are coming out of your mouth? And you just ask them a question. Ask them something that goes a little deeper.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you want them to get defensive and whatnot. You're just inquiring.
I love how you said that. You're just inquiring.
Because why are they even telling you this unless they trust you or want you to know?
Yeah. Inquiry minds want to know.
Exactly. And I just love the gloss over look where it's just like, okay, this is not my first rodeo. But the funny part is that for them to weasel their way out of it, that's the fun part to look out for.
Yeah.
Like what phrasing they're going to use, or what diversion, or I got to go, or Okay, all right. The elephant in the room has been exposed, and I see it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, certain things can or cannot be out of your control, but it's funny when you use that as an element for it not to play out right, you know?
Yep.
I mean, there can be delays or this or that, but the point is that it starts from what's your part in the delay as well,
Mhm.
you know? So it really comes down to people don't like to peel the onion when they see that, oh shit, that onion starts with me.
Right.
It's like,
Well,
oh
and
man.
and also they'll look at yourself about like in any relationship, friendship, or whatever. There's a tendency for a person to be an alpha, and then want to be, one to be kind of secondary, right?
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, if you're the one that's willing to, to bring this up when it's an unfortunate situation and resolve something, it's like you can't back down when it gets tough, right? Because why would you put yourself through all of that unless you wanted it to come to some kind of resolution, right?
Right.
And when you pile all this stuff together, like your integrity, your thinking, your clarity, waving a big hand from Montana. Hey, Chip.
Hey, I'm in Montana too, Chip. How about
Yeah.
that?
Is the more that you can bring that to the surface without emotion, the more powerful you are in a space of whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this whole thing that we're talking about here, it should be learning lessons, stepping stones to where we need to go in life. And so many people repeat this step over and over and
Yep.
never get a clue on
Yep.
how to resolve things, you know? Yeah. I don't know what part of Montana you're in, but I'm in Billings. So,
I it's I remember when I went to therapy with an ex, couples counseling, is that it's obviously I lived in the suburbs of Chicago and I was going to move out, and one of the things that always stuck with me about that is that it's like, okay, therapy was something that is not a one-time deal, in my opinion.
oh heck,
You know, it's not a one-time deal, especially if you're going to get to the root of things and you're going. I'd rather take a couple years of my life to get myself right than to spend many years regretting it, downplaying it. I don't need that, blah 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 blah.
right.
And so what I realized was I'm like, huh, I wonder if my partner at that time, or ex-partner now, I wonder if she would stick with this, as a person that really wants help,
Yeah,
right? Like, you're at the mercy of somebody else to help you, right?
right.
So you're the person that doesn't have all the answers, and you're saying, hey, help me, right? Because that's saying that to some people that might be a sign of weakness. And I was one of those people where it's like, okay, I need to submit that I need help. I can't figure this out on my own, right?
Right.
And I know some people that they have the temperament or the personality that is beneath them to do, right?
Yeah.
They
Well,
might
it's
do it once, but
society.
they won't do it to make sure they go
Yeah.
through all their issues.
That was society's thought, you know?
Yeah.
And so it really is, but it was one of those things. I had a chip on my shoulder because I was transparent about the abuse and things I went through in my house, and all of a sudden they thought I was nuts or I was talking to a shrink. I'm like, what's going on here? I'm not the one that's bad in this situation, but mind you, they were trying to save my sanity for what I was going through. But the point is like, I was going to be a New York State trooper. I went through all my psychological testing. Like, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? But again, it's the stereotypical, response of people, and with the mental illness, the way it used to be. I mean, more people get a fair shake with it now than they used to, but it used to be something you didn't talk about. Like, let's just lock those people up and not talk about them, kind of thing. So it really was a stigma that plagued anyone from actually going to get help or admitting, like you couldn't admit that you needed help or to figure things out. It wasn't something to talk about.
Right.
where it is now, Now you have people being more compassionate and say, shit, I wish I'd talked to that person, or I wish I was kinder to that person. Hindsight's everything. But, again, if we were more open about how to handle conversations and resolve things, we wouldn't be, as a society, such a effed up mess.
Well, our society is good at passing off the buck.
Yeah.
Pass off the buck. I'll deal with it later. I don't have time for this right now. Well,
Yeah.
What you resist persists.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, and the part that a lot of people don't understand is that you only get yourself deeper in the sludge when you choose to put it off.
Yeah.
It's
Oh gosh.
because you're making meaning every single time every time you think of that person or the vibe that's in the relationship, every time that you represents any thought about that, it goes to your body manifestations, right? Your body sensations, right?
Absolutely.
And it's like, of course, what you need to do takes you further away, because every part of your being, like when your amygdala is firing, just survive this moment and withdraw and don't be a part of it. Well,
right.
That's exactly the opposite thing you need to do if you want to complete something.
Right.
Unless you're okay with walking away. Well, then it shouldn't be an issue. Then just walk away. Done.
Right.
But if you're not, but depending on the situation, that might not, that doesn't work all the time.
No, it doesn't work all the time, because if you're really the one that's the problem in the situation, you're just going to repeat it again. Mm-hmm. And you're never going to learn the lesson.
Right.
Until you realize, well, shit, why is everybody I got to deal with has got the same problem? Maybe they don't have the problem. You do.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of, I don't wish pain upon anybody, but I think that once you go through it, you look at life differently. And if that's what it takes to go through once to be an entirely different person, that's not going to be pushed around in life. It might suck when you're going through it, but I think it's the best, right? Yeah. Versus like people that are causing carnage and, just causing difficulty and disruption and hurt feelings, and they either don't care, it doesn't matter to them. Well, then, man, they're just a walking billboard for negativity and people that are upset with them.
Yeah. Well, I want to say hi to Dennis really quick.
Dennis is here. This is an amazing talk. Glad I stumbled. Yeah, Chip. Yeah, thanks for being here. Yeah.
Thanks for being here. That's awesome. So yeah, it's one of those things where if we could just go ahead and even reflect from relationships before and realize how it would help. Oh, Eamon's here.
Hi, Eamon. Sometimes the problem is not a negative one. Like sometimes you need to show that you are not weak. You are kind but not weak. Yeah, I mean, negative is a perception. Depending on the circumstances or whatever. But if something has been, if it's been an elephant in the room that has been created, likely that there's like some feelings either way, right? There's usually not resistance to things that are positive, right?
Yeah.
Like things that happen that are great in life. It's not like you're ignoring that person or doing what humans do to either deal with the situation or move past it. If it's positive, there's usually not that kind of behavior.
Yeah. I like how she says here, though, like sometimes you need to show that you're not weak.
Absolutely.
Even, and Eamon is the one, she's a film writer. She's a film director, everything. So she's looking to do some miniseries with my books and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
I think that weak is a very powerful thing there because of the stigma of how we've been programmed as human beings and socialization is that, just like even like going to therapy, some people may think it's like, oh no, you should be able to figure all your stuff on your own.
But right? What's funny? Why was it that always in Hollywood, like it was a big deal to always say, I had a therapist. I go see my therapist. like they were trying to like change the way people saw society, and say a therapist. I have a therapist. I mean, I think people in Hollywood made it seem cool if you had a therapist, But until they said that, people didn't think it was cool. Hey, John Wayne has a therapist. Oh, wait, maybe I need one of those.
And you come to find out that I realized this where it's just like once I was vulnerable to tell other people that I'm seeking therapy, all of a sudden it's like the people I never would imagine, like people that I know would say, yeah, I see a therapist.
Yeah.
What? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So who knows if they probably would have never shared that unless I would have went there first.
Well, you know what? And it's funny you say that because I know that when my husband tried to get me in the psych ward type of thing, and I told people that, they're like, Lynn, it's okay. I've talked to somebody. I'm like, but I don't want to talk to nobody.
Right.
I'm like, thanks for sharing your shit, but I'm telling you, I'm not sharing this because I'm happy about it.
Yeah, and what they say is that the person that usually communicates that way, usually with some energy or frustration or anger,
Really
are
needs
usually the
it.
ones that need it the most.
Well, you know,
You don't run into too many people that are said you need therapy that are like, no, I'm good. Usually they fight it. There's a defensiveness to it.
yeah.
It's not this subtle,
Well,
stoic,
it was because
one.
that was,
That's awesome, Eamon. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Well,
Yep,
it's because this is
that's
back in
awesome.
1996 when it wasn't cool to go to therapy type of thing. But it was also the fact that I didn't realize that there was good people here in Billings that were actually trying to save me from a really domestic violence kind of, marriage I had. And they
Wow.
were like trying to help me because he was threatening my life. So, I mean, I didn't realize the scenario. All I was stuck with the stereotype of, why am I coming here? And so long story short, I had left once in a blizzard with my kids because my life was threatened one too many times. And then I came back and I went to a therapist. She goes, I said, I thought you'd be glad that I came back therapy. She goes, no. She goes, if I was you, I wouldn't have came back to Montana. She goes, that was your problem. I'm like, I don't get you people out here.
I don't get you people
I
out
mean,
here.
I can laugh about this now, right? But I couldn't laugh about it then.
In Long Island, kids are fed to kids are like parents feed their young or something.
So,
They put them
anyways,
like the Wild West or something.
it was one of those things where the problem, and I need a therapist, is because of who I was married to is the problem. But but yeah, that's for another time. But the bottom line is that we just need to know that it's for your mental health. You really need to go ahead and have closure in relationships that don't work, or move on, because if not, it's not healthy and you're delaying.
Okay. There's been all these signs that it's not going anywhere. It's lingering. It's like freaking dirty garbage in a garbage can that you don't take out, right?
Yeah,
I mean, let's call it what it is, or
yeah,
that's a metaphor and analogy. But it's like, how long is it going to take for it to stink enough for you to do something about it? Here's another way of looking at it. How many times, like if you have an injury, right? How long is the pain going to get to you before you actually freaking make a call, schedule an appointment, and go and see a doctor?
right.
That's really what we're breaking it down to here. But it's mental, it's
Right.
feelings, it's your heart, it's your
Mhm.
vulnerability, but it's the same context.
Yep.
How long are you going to, and one of the worst things you can do for your mental health is what they call the vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you replay every single thing in your head from your point of view with your meaning and your emotion attached to it. You're like ping pong balls in your head, rehashing everything that happened, right? Because you get a dopamine hit doing that, right?
Yeah.
But here's the problem. There's no new outcome.
No, doesn't change a damn thing.
The outcome has already been established when the moment was, we're done.
Yep.
It doesn't change. But in our brain, we think somehow, well, if I look at it this way, or if I look at it on this day at this time, the result's going to be so much different. Not going to happen.
And it's just like when you go from younger to older, or even your kids' situation, your kids are growing up. Either one of those scenarios, what cracks me up is you thought one problem was bad, but then the problems get bigger and bigger, and you
Nope.
realize the first problem ain't shit compared to what you've been through.
Right.
It's the snowball effect. And yet until you change it, the trajectory is is going to be one of the same. And it's good, but it's going to be exasperated by the fact that you continue to compound all those times
Amen.
to a it's that snowball effect going down the damn road. It just gets bigger. It doesn't get smaller as you go down the freaking snow hill.
To take what you just said there, remember the visual from a couple weeks ago with the open road, right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's majestic. There's scenery. There might not, there might not be much for right there. Now that's more like a Midwestern type of feel, because obviously the grass and, is dead, but it's growing
like
again.
Montana. Yeah.
It's definitely not the desert or, the suburbia that you might live in. But the thing about it is that imagine all like these roadblocks. And it's like, man, why am I still dealing with this stuff?
Yeah.
How much of your life are you going to give to the things that there is no new outcomes?
Yeah. Or like Frogger. Remember that game Frogger? You can only get to the middle and medium. And you're like, but you still got shit to jump through.
I mean, how many dead ends do you have to go down to think like, oh, well, is there a wall on the opposite side of this? No.
Yeah.
You got to turn around and go somewhere else.
And, like I said before, I'm sad to see, Michelle made it.
Michelle's here. Yay.
And hi, Tracy.
Hey, Tracy.
The thing is we continue to see this as not a big deal. And it becomes a bigger deal than ever.
Yep.
And this is the problem we have, is that no one's taking for granted that we don't need to live like that. We don't need to have that. And the longer you delay those relationships, the worse they get. And there's so many people in marriages that don't work anymore. They're better friends than they are spouses. Yep. Or this or that. They let their light and their life dwindle to they take you off the life machine, life support. Yeah, there you go. Take you off freaking life support, because
the life machine.
Yeah, life machine. There you go. Call it the life. Write that down. Life
machine.
Yeah.
Jerry would be like, what do you speak about this life machine? What's that?
Yeah, he might even know what it is. He might even
life machine. Is that like a DeLorean but different? Yeah.
Which, by the way, Jerry's not here today or here yet, but he's going to be here tomorrow. So we're excited to have him. There's a picture of Jerry right there. He's a no nonsense kind of guy. Love him. But seriously, you guys, if you can take one thing from today, and we're not even to the closing yet, but I want you I want you to just think about the fact of how many things that you already knew you had to get rid of in your life. All the relationships you're like, this isn't going anywhere. And just delaying it, it's not a good thing at all, Right.
We need to use that in the script. Yeah. Write it down. Make sure this thing records.
Yeah, even she goes, the machine.
Yeah, that machine thing. Yeah, life thing with all the cables and stuff. Yeah, that thing.
Yeah, I can't wait for Jerry tomorrow. He's gonna be awesome.
I gotta come ready because he. I love when Jerry talks because I know that everything that he says is constructive. He's like an older brother or a dad to me, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be fully transparent, but just because it's this is something a little bit about me, and I know that Lynn knows this, but when I was growing up, my mom always said, "Wow, you really surround yourself with people older than you." I've always I would sit there, and once I earned their trust, I would sit there for hours just talking to people about like military stories or whatever. I never found a lot of interest in hanging out with people my own age, and I did, obviously, but I always found the most wisdom and life experience for people older than me, and Jerry's one of those people. So,
and I'm way older than you too. So there you go. You're sweet. You're smart boy. You didn't say nothing. You let me say that.
Well, you already knew that, so I'm just repeating the facts. So, we don't have Jerry on our show very often. I mean, as a guest, as a viewer, that's one thing, but as a guest.
That'll be really exciting. So,
I mean, just his presence. I mean, he tells it like it is. No nonsense, North Carolina boy. And, he's been through a lot in his life. I mean, I've never met him in person. I've never met his wife, Cheryl, but I can't wait, man. When, when the world opens up a little bit and we're able to safely travel and
Oh
be
yeah,
around
and
people that
I get to see them this summer before I see you, so I'm super excited.
that's cool.
Super excited.
I can just envision, like how him and Cheryl entertain. Like on their patio and stuff, like like some homemade recipes or some
Well,
local
yeah.
fare.
Well, I'll be we'll be doing FaceTime while I'm there. We're gonna be hanging out and having a conversation. It'll be so freaking awesome.
Hey, if there's any barbecue that's there or whatever, don't show me pictures. Otherwise, I might salivate on my phone. Seriously.
Oh, Jerry, go. I think it's dinner time, and I think you better call Brian.
Just be like, we got some ribs over here. I'm like, no, don't show me that stuff. Like, I love all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
As I'm doing my 2-mile walk, and I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah. Oh man. So anyhow, so yeah, Dead Space as we think.
Nah, Dead Space is fine. I don't.
I don't care either.
I just don't. I don't really know what more there is to say besides, like you've come so far. As we started out on day one, you acknowledge that there's a problem. Now,
Right.
depending on the situation, how long it's been, how much your heart has been into it, there's such a myriad of different things that go in that. Ribs and peanut. Yes, absolutely, Tracy. Maybe not at the same time. I'm thinking like ribs with peanut butter on them. That might be a little too much. But yes, thank you.
Oh my gosh, I love it. She's taking notes for me.
Oh, good Lord. So how much, just looking at the open road of picture, how much of your life are you going to waste?
Right.
You've survived what happened, right? Hopefully you've learned some things that are just like a trigger, right? Now it's like second nature for you to be sensitive to that or desensitized to that, where it's just like now it becomes how you look at life. You know what I mean? Or it's something that you're being a disservice to yourself if you don't take the lessons that you learned and how you look at life now or moving forward.
Well, Brian, I'm going to add though, with the things I dealt with in my life, there was times that it was always better to be silent.
Yeah.
And especially when you're in a domestic violence situation or narcissistic husband and you have children and things like that. So for those that have been around, by all means, it's not a time to speak up and put yourself in danger. There's a time and a place for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But the time and the place is truly, and I will say this because I was in that place, time and the place is for you to start thinking to survive those situations, to think of what you want your life. Obviously, what you don't want in your life. Start thinking about what you do want in your life and know that in the future, when you're in a relationship, that you have the right to build that and protect yourself, to be with someone that has where you can safely talk and not be intimidated by them and not be manipulated by them and that kind of stuff. Sometimes there is no closure to just walk away from a situation because it can be detrimental to your health or your children and that kind of stuff. But of course, just know that we are talking about healthy relationships that you can we don't encourage whatsoever to be like sticking up for yourself if it's gonna mean danger to you or your loved ones. But by all means, we're talking a healthy relationship. And I think Brian and I have said this before, and I just feel important to say again is that this is why I feel it's important when you start out a relationship, you put all your cards on the table as far as what you can tolerate in a relationship and what you won't. Mm-hmm. And do this in a public place, like go to a restaurant, go somewhere so that when you're having this conversation, if it's not going well, ladies, you can get the heck out of there and not be at their house or your house.
Yep.
These are things that truly are important in a relationship. And I'll give a good example, and this is kind of funny now, but it wasn't, when I was first dating 10 years ago, I think it was, One guy, I met him at Applebee's. Applebee's closed. We sat in my car, and it must have been the freaking coldest day in Montana here. But we stayed till like 2 o'clock in the morning talking. And what was really great is a cop came up to check up on us. What the best thing happened, you guys, is they asked for both of our driver's license. I kid you not. He ran clean, and I finally said, "Okay, I guess we could have dinner, and you can, come to my house." But it was great. I already had a police check on him and everything. But I'm serious. But it was laying all the cards on the table as far as what you will put up with. You always have to think of your safety first, and you always have to realize safety first is so important in the beginning of a relationship. If they don't, it's all the small things that add up at the end. And if somebody's sitting there talking all about them, and what's important is how was their relationship prior? If they have nothing nice to say about their previous spouse or boyfriend or whatever, please let that be a clue that you're not going to be able to change nobody. Don't expect to change anybody. If they have nothing nice to say about their last relationship, please let that be a sign that they're you might as well resolve to say, I am not going to get a deep emotionally involved in this. So I felt that it was really important to say that.
If you don't take the lessons that Michelle says, but there are things you learn about that person that bother you later on as well.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And then you got to make a decision there. Can I live with that or not? Because if you can't live with that,
minor?
Yeah. If you can't live with that, that's all indication that you're going to have to be the bigger person and say, I got to leave, because obviously you can't change nobody, except you can only change the way you look at that. If you can't change the way you look at that, it has something to do with something about you that you can't live with. Then either you work on resolving that because you care about this person, or you remove yourself from it,
Do the qualities of that person exceed the quirkiness or the shortcomings of that person?
Well,
eventually one is going to overpower the other.
Well, you may not have nothing nice to say about your ex, but you're better off to say nothing at all. If you have nothing, and I'm truly saying that you don't want to have that come back to you whatsoever.
I mean, even I don't know the situation, any of that. It's none of my business. But what I can say is, as painful as it might be or whatever, when you can say that when you can just say to yourself and do it comfortably that it just didn't work between us.
Yeah.
If you can say that to yourself without feeling, like getting a tummy ache about it, or without ready to rage,
And
that to me is civil. And I've been wrong in my life. We all have, but it doesn't do me any good to hold a grudge or whatever.
Well, listen, I have 2 ex-husbands. One drugged me behind a vehicle and kidnapped my daughter, or took our daughter to a different state. Mm-hmm. And the other one, all of the above. And you know what? All I can say is I don't wish them any harm. I wish them the best. I pray for both of them, because everything they did onto me, they've got tenfolds back, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So I've just seriously learned in time. It took time, but I made peace with that. Was a scenario. I can't continue to hate and leave that scenario to scar me and leave me with excuses, or leave me not fulfilling and having the best life I can. Because what I remember is, thank God I'm not with them anymore.
Right.
And the suffering and the pains are over. Now I have no excuse but to do the best I can and live my best life, and hope that they can do the same.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. The leaving it civil, where you don't have any feelings regardless, right? Because you flushed them all out by working on yourself or getting the help you need or whatever that is, right? That it's like, hey, I don't have any negative feelings about them because I flushed it all out, that I knew it wasn't helpful to me and it wasn't going to change anything, right? So, and it's like, I think that here's one thing I've heard a lot throughout therapy. It's like, I got to go work on myself. And it always happens when a relationship doesn't go well, right? Is that one person breaks it up. It might have been in the pipeline for a while. The other person is, either they were unaware that it was coming, or like when it actually happened, it was like the freaking blinders were taken off, right? Is that I'm going to go work on myself. And it's like, I've heard that so many times that it seems like cliche, instead of it actually being something that people are going to commit to, and they're going to do it for themselves and their well-being. They're not going to do it with with a means of getting that person back, or look at me, if that person wants to reconcile, right? I've seen that a lot, and I just had to share that it was like, anything that you do to rehabilitate, you do it for yourself,
Right.
Well,
you're
and the more that you do it, the less I can tell you right now is that there's times every now and again where I think of different scenarios or whatever my mind is doing, and it's like, oh wow, I'm glad I'm not a part of that anymore.
right.
Or I was badgered, or I was I was disrespected, all of those types of things.
Yeah. Well,
And and I'm glad, because it's like I said my piece when I said, when the time was to say it, but I don't hold any grudge. And I know that, Lynn, you've mentioned that before. To me, it's just something I don't want people to struggle. I don't want there to be any pain or any harm that I wish upon anybody. That doesn't work for me in the world.
yeah.
That person's not bad. They're just not for me. That's it.
Right.
That's
Right.
it. That's it.
Right. And like I said, I mean, I was married to two people that at one point I feared for my life.
Yep.
I mean, I was scared. I mean, I was scared they'd find me. I mean, it was just not a very good situation. And the first one that drugged me behind the vehicle, that's a whole story. But what I can tell you is this: is that he was there when my brother died, my brother that I didn't grow up with, and he ended up. I'm trying not to go into a lot of detail right now, but the bottom line is that despite everything happened, I was actually to hug. I actually met up with this guy, hugged him, and cried, and felt bad for what he's going through, and forgave him for everything. So yeah, I hugged and forgave and let go everything from what this man did to me.
Wow.
I let it go. Okay. That was a full circle time in my life. And then this last one, I feared him. I feared him till finally, I get his medical records to realize that he's in a way that he could never be a threat to me anymore.
Yep.
Now talk about going from fearing my life to now me feeling bad about how he's doing in his life now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No spoilers, please. So again, I'm telling you that I've gone two full circle for two men. And the first one I was married to in the New York State, I got a divorce under cruel and humane. You don't get a cruel and humane divorce in New York unless there's a lot of facts there. Okay. I will tell you that. And so all I could say is I have forgiven these men. And I know it wasn't easy, but it's made my life, it's made my health better to not hold those things. And most people say, like Ricky would say, Lynn, I can't even imagine you've been in bad marriages. You never talk about them. I said, have you never heard? If you have nothing nice to say, you don't say it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then yet me and the girls would bring up some good memories, because there were some good memories. We hold those and we let go of the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the best way. And that's what I wish for everyone to say, because when you hold that, it will come out like cancer in you some ways, one way or another.
Eamon, I want to share one more thing, and hopefully it gives you a thought or an idea. And it just came to me, is that whatever harm or pain or whatever was caused to you by your ex, think about how not willing or not being able to let that go clouds how you look at life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guarantee it affects it in some way. How you relate to other people, a myriad of things, attitude, behavior, the consistency of any of those. I mean, I'm just shooting at the hip here, but it's like with that burden, with those feelings, it's hard for me to believe that that is only there in one part of your life. Even
Yeah.
though it only happened in one part of your life, it's hard for me to believe that it doesn't stop there. Hopefully that makes sense. It'd be interesting to find out, because it's kind of like the way that we are in life, we're all or nothing, right? And so it's like how we feel in any given moment is reminiscent upon how everything looks in our life. I let go of what he did to me, but not to my baby. Okay. All right. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you.
It, and with that, but remember, this is probably not going to make sense, and we'll talk later, but I will say this, but remember, be thankful that you have your baby. And
Mm,
yeah, and think of all just the good times and promise me that you'll let go of all the other stuff,
right.
because after time, yeah, I know it's hard. I know it's hard. It's always hard when we're in the middle of a
Right.
storm, when
Right.
we're middle of things. But I will tell you, at 55 years old and everything I've been through, that in time, when you go back to reflect and look at these things, your heart won't be as hard as it is now.
Right.
Your heart will
Right.
soften. Your heart, and I can say that because with time, I saw what happened to both of my ex-husbands. And for me to still stay hard ass with what these two men are destined in their life,
Mhm.
I would be no better person if I held that against them. I
Right.
mean, I would be a problem to that. Instead, I think everything you do here, you pay here.
Yep.
And in order to make sure that you're doing right, you need to release the clause you have in the toxicity of those things so that you are not drawn into that in that burning fire of wrath.
Yeah.
And that's where the release and the peace comes, is when you say let go and let God take care of it, because it,
Right.
it does. It
I
truly
would
does.
I would very much I'm a Eamon, I'm the type of person that I would rather say something, whether or not it makes sense, than to live with not saying and be a disservice to somebody. Right.
Mm.
And that's how I was raised. But after almost dying in a car accident, I've been more forthcoming than ever before because I don't care what people think about me. Right. Sometimes I do, but if I could survive almost dying, for me to share something that might be uncomfortable for somebody, I get it, but that's where I play every day. To be uncomfortable. I mean, you know, at the beginning of our show this year, Lynn talked about what is your one word, and it's like with those kinds of resolutions and things, it's just pie in the sky type crap to me, right?
Aw, we
Even yeah,
love you.
we love you. Thank you for being here and being vulnerable and transparent with us. But after thinking about it for a couple of days, and after Lynn, stopped drinking her Pinnacle Whip vodka, is is that I came to the word of disruption, and next to disruption is always uncomfortable. How uncomfortable can I be every day? Because you keep moving the needle, right? When you put yourself in positions, and for me, being a performer, being up on stage, improv, planning weddings and being a master of ceremonies at an event, the more I can be uncomfortable, the more I'm pushing the envelope to never being, just set foot in a concrete space ever again. And so what I what I mean by that is that when you go head to head with what's going on in your life, it's not easy. You can either go around it or through it. Now, it might take some time to decide on how to do that, but what we can't see is what's on the opposite side of the door, right? We
Right.
don't know what it is, just like in Acres of Diamonds, right? Where the person gives up on their backyard because
Yep.
they need to go to California, I think it was, in Russell Conwell, is that, and then a person actually took the time to examine what was there, and sure enough, there was diamonds right there, right?
Yep.
After they
Yep.
sold it and thought that there was no hope.
Yep.
So what I'm imparting to you is that take the necessary time you need, but move on. Move on however you can, right? One day at a time, one moment at a time. Redirect your thoughts somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, because if we keep thinking about what we don't want or what we had before, we're not allowing ourselves room to get what we do want and what
Right.
we want to build. And we need to just start. We got to stop that tape recorder and start the new one.
Correct.
Start, functioning. Like my word this year is vulnerable. I'm freaking being vulnerable, and I'm going to write a book. I mean, I can't. I don't know how much more vulnerable I can be. Damn it! But all we're trying to say here is that truly, you're welcome,
You're
beautiful. I
welcome,
love you
Eamon.
so
Thank
much.
you for all your sharing
You know
today.
what? And I got to share something sweet. She and I were on the phone yesterday, and she goes, "Oh, Lynn, oh," and she shared with me this beautiful picture. It was sad. There was a bird that was injured, and she took a picture that she was just talking to the bird and wanted to help him. And we decided that was probably better left alone so that the mom could come and take care of it or whatever. But her heart is just so pure and so beautiful. I just love her. So
Windshield is bigger than
that's right.
absolutely, Tracy. Wow, that's really
Absolutely.
good. I like that.
Absolutely.
I like that.
We need to get going, but you guys, I love how we ended up the conversation with just being a reminder that we don't need to let things perpetually affect us, that it keeps being a snowball effect in anything and making it bigger by you can just stop and get away from that vicious cycle, get away from it, and work on yourself, work on your happiness. And is there anything else you want to say before we go here, Brian?
Just a couple of things is that if you do nothing, don't expect anything. If anything, the reverse is going to happen, right? If you just sit there and fester, number one, you already know what you're going to get because you're going to stay where you are mentally, physically, spiritually. If anything, you're going to fall backwards, right? But if you actually do something, it's like, and here's the thing. The unfortunate part about life is we don't know what it's going to look like in the future. But I can guarantee you this one thing is that, and this is not me to toot my own horn, but I had a choice. When I got word that my dad passed away unexpectedly 9 months after my car accident, I had two choices. I can either face it head on and not drink myself to oblivion to try to mask how I really felt and really just not really want to go on, or I can hide. Which one would you rather have? A lingering effect of, being in disbelief about it, maybe not, being in denial about it and really never confronting it and having that linger throughout my whole life and how I view the world, or to actually deal with it day by day as hard as it was and ultimately come to some peace with it, right?
Mhm.
Now, I don't have the emotions of your situation, but hopefully from one person or another that's experienced things in life that it can help you. It can be of service to you. And thank you for anybody that, for all of our guests like Chip, who was on. Thank you for taking your time with us. We hope that you become a regular and tuning into our show. Tomorrow is going to be a great time with one of our mentors from Concord, North Carolina. Jerry will be with us. He'll have his Southern draw in finer form. And we'll see how quick-witted Jerry can get because this is going to be awesome. So we're happy to have him with us tomorrow.
I love it. All right, you guys have a good one.
See you tomorrow.
Love you. Bye.